Hey everyone, welcome back. Thank you, Guru Nation, for watching, listening, or whatever you prefer. I'm Dan Sfera. I'm here with Daniel Regitt. He's a CRA for a major CRO. He's been doing this for quite some time, about 8 years. I'm going to let him introduce himself and have him explain how he got involved in this industry, what his background was. So there's going to be some tidbits there for all you aspiring CRAs. I know a lot of our audience are aspiring CRAs, but there's going to be even more information for everyone who currently is a CRA and wants to boost their productivity because Daniel actually coaches CRAs on how to be more productive, more effective, and everything else that entails. So, Daniel, fill in any gaps that I missed out and just kind of explain who you are and how you get started in this space.
Absolutely. Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me on. I love your content, and I'm happy we're hooked up. I am a CRA at one of the, as you mentioned, major CROs. I come from a background from the RN field. I might add that I did that in Germany. I grew up in Germany, only moved back to the States a little bit over a year ago, and I got into the industry because I was aiming at being a CRA. I learned on the internet about this job, and was that was after our second child was born. So I was starting to look for something with career opportunities beyond just nursing, and got hired at one of the major CROs in an entry level position. And I'm very, very grateful for that fact. I'd like to add I did have interviews right off the bat from nursing as a CRA. I thank the Lord that they didn't take me because I would have sunk like a rock.
Why? Why
Uh,
do you say that?
because instead I was hired into an entry level position where I was working within the medical monitoring department of a CRO, and it was in an administrative task where I was juggling a bunch of protocols. I was up to 25 protocols at once at one time. And being in Germany, this being a US based CRO that I was working for, there was the United States and what they called the rest of the world. And me being in Germany, and for my position, there was only one person assigned to each protocol in rest of the world, which automatically, lucky me, made me a team lead, technically. I was the
Okay.
only one on the team, but it was a team lead. So I was on all the team lead calls. And I worked up through position one, level one, two, three, and then mentor for that job that I was doing over those 4 years, and was on a bunch of team lead calls where I had insight into problems that clinical operations is facing, data management is facing, project management, medical monitoring is facing. So I had a lot of insight into different problems on different trials. I was assigned phases 1 to 3B. So across everything, I was on about 70 different indications over those years. So I had so many opportunities on these calls to pick up on how clinical trials work, all the different components and how they work together, what kind of problems can show up, and how the team solve them. And once I had that, I went through the internal training program for CRAs. I applied for that, was accepted, did that program. And at that point, again, looking back, I'd seen and heard so many issues and how they were solved, and had such an in-depth understanding of the complexity of clinical trials. And I'll also be forever grateful for my first mentor. She was a medical director in my first week at that CRO. And the first thing she told me, she used to be an auditor at that time, so she really knew what she was doing. She took me under her wing a little bit, and she was like, Daniel, first thing you need to understand is it's going to take you roughly 10 years to understand how clinical trials work.
Right.
If you understand everything, it's going to take you about 10 years.
So you're still not there, Daniel.
I just wanted to say, with 8.5 years, I can say, yeah, that was a pretty good estimate.
Okay, right?
And maybe that also takes some of the stress off somebody who's new to the industry. It really is terribly complex
It
to
takes, and you
understand
know what? It's
all
this
those things
industry.
tie into it.
You're absolutely right. This industry is the only one I've been in. I mean, I dabble in real estate a little bit, and there's this thing called mastery, and there's this
Yeah.
book by Robert Greene, and then Malcolm Gladwell wrote about this also, the 10,000 hour rule. And
Yeah.
if you work a normal schedule, like 9 to 5, and you're really only working 60% of that time, like actual work to where you're actually learning, which most people don't do, by the way, and we can get into a little bit of that. Um, it's gonna take about 10 years, and I've been in this industry for 12, and just yesterday, I learned new things. I mean, I didn't know what a SBA was when it comes to submitting, and that's a document that the sponsor submits to the FDA during the trial. I didn't know what that was because, as a research site owner, study coordinator, even as a CRA, you don't get into that. But I was helping someone who is applying to be a medical liaison, and that was one of the questions. So I had to Google it. I learned, and now I know what it is. But this is like year 12. You're still learning new stuff. So you never truly become an expert, but I mean, after 10 years, you're pretty close to that.
Yeah, and that on the other hand is one of the beauties of this industry is it's everybody talks about it in every job or in a lot of jobs, but it's really true here. You learn something new every day. I mean, you learn something new every day in this industry, and as a CRA too. Um, yeah, so basically, getting back to that, that is why I'm really so happy that it took 4.5 years to get into that, and that's also why I recommend that route to anybody trying to become a CRA. If you don't have entry level experience where you're going to be on a bunch of different protocols, you're going to learn a lot, you're going to talk with your colleagues in your coffee break, you're not going to be home based the first job that you're offered, you're going to be in an office. You'll be soaking up so much information over those years that you will really need to have this framework when you then become a CRA to understand what that part is and how that affects other things down the road when you're doing your individual tasks. So, having juggled so many trials at that time, and in Germany where they teach you accuracy, I learned basically how to organize a lot of stuff. So I would be following up on a lab alert next Wednesday because on Thursday we needed XYZ and so forth and so on. And it was just such a vast amount of communication juggling and having your trackers and stuff like that, that it was really good schooling in being able to set up a lot of systems and learning how to create your own tools
Hmm.
because there's a bunch of systems at big CROs, but there's no way around you creating your own tools
Yeah.
and making your own tools to make your life easier.
So
And
why? So we're
yep,
gonna get into productivity and efficiency. And first of all, I mean, it may seem obvious, but let's say someone out there is watching, and they're
hmm
like, "Hey, Dan and Daniel, do I care if I'm an effective CRA and a productive CRA? I just want to get a paycheck, go home. I'm not a contract CRA. I'm a W-2 employee. I just, I want to fly under the radar and do just enough so I don't get fired. Like, why do they need to be
my question
productive?
would be, how long do you want to be receiving that paycheck? Because it's a high workload and it's a high performance game, and you better be efficient at what you do. Because if you're not going to be in the game for too long. You're
So do
just
you
going to,
know do that's a good topic. So I always talk about this with with other CRAs.
yeah,
I don't Is this a myth or is this reality? They say once you are at that 2-year mark as a
yeah,
CRA, you
yeah.
don't get fired, you just quit, right? And you go somewhere else. Is that true?
I no, I know for a fact that you can be fired, um, maybe with compliments and so forth,
Okay.
but there's no way around. You have to be a top performer, and the cool thing is, although there's no way to be a top performing CRA with all the tasks that you have to have oversight over and all of your deliverables and timelines and so forth that you have to meet, um, there's no way to basically just do that with a pen and a notebook and just try that. you need to have a system that checks everything basically if you want to sleep well at night, because the worst thing is leaving a site after a monitoring visit and wondering right as the door closes behind you, did I forget something? Did I forget to check this and that? And yeah, or getting this email about something was due 3 days ago. Can you please forward me the email where you provided
Right, right.
it?
So not just is it a good strategy to be productive and effective to keep your job, but it's also just helps your quality of life because then you don't have to worry about these things. When you leave the office, you could be done, even though you're
Yeah,
never really done, but you could be more done than someone else who maybe does not follow your systems. And then if
you
you're a contract CRA, it's even more obvious why these things matter
yeah,
because you could make more money and take on more projects the more productive you are, right?
absolutely. And you can be at least done to a point where you say, I have oversight over everything that's going on right now, and I know for a fact this can stay frozen until tomorrow morning. And so it really helps you for both things. I mean, there's so many expectations thrown at you as a CRA that it's really easy to become feel totally overwhelmed. And so that really is like what you say with quality of life. I mean, that really takes a toll on you if every day is just like chasing and scrambling and chasing and scrambling
Yeah.
versus having that inner security to know I know exactly where I stand on all the tasks that are required. I know that I've checked everything at the monitoring visit. I know that everything is in my documents. So when I'm writing the trip report, I will
Mm-hmm.
have everything in there, and writing
Mm-hmm.
the trip report's going to be a breeze. I have a system set up where I know, like this example, there's a site announced a screening for next Tuesday. I know I will not forget to reach out to them on Monday
Yeah.
and just check with them.
It's like don't do like what I did my first CRA gig, and I'm a contract CRA, so I choose my schedule. So I picked both my CRA visits to be back to back. So one day I went to one site, one day I went to the other site, and then I'd be done for another 2 months, right?
Okay.
So I did that, went to both, did my reports the days after, and
Yeah.
I forgot. I didn't even, first of all, I didn't even know. It was my first IMV. I didn't
Hmm.
even know I was supposed to collect. It was a SIV, site initiation visit. I didn't
Yeah.
even know I was supposed to collect copies of the reg docs. So I left both sites, did my report, sent it to my lead. She replies back, "Oh, cool. Can you also send the essential documents
Documents
you collected?"
collected.
And I said, "Oh yeah, let me get those for you." And then just called the sites, "Hey, can you please send me this right now? I forgot to pick it up." Both sites, luckily they did it. I had to follow up like 2 or 3 times, but they did it the same day. And so
Yeah.
I got lucky. But I
Yeah.
know that I could have just
That's
as
your
easily
worst
been
nightmare.
unlucky, right? Like,
Um,
and I was prepared to go back to the site because they were local to me the next day and just go show up and get it. But
yeah.
luckily they sent it to me. But if I were traveled to another city and
Yeah.
now I have other stuff to worry about. Like, this is just another headache. So, we were talking about quality of life and peace of mind. And
Yeah.
if I would have just known or had a system like you help other CRAs develop a system to be more productive. So don't be like Dan, be like Daniel. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, and it took me many, many years. And basically, it's not like I sat down one day and was like, I should have a system here. I've been basically working on that and adding to it and adding to it and making it more streamlined to a point where I can say, okay, this really actually covers everything that you need to think of when you're a CRA. Again, my specialty is not explaining to people the general CRA training that everybody gets, and I wouldn't consider it a training at all. It's really a coaching. It's really taking somebody who is a CRA or even somebody who's really just on the verge of becoming a CRA. It's absolutely helpful for somebody like that. Even if you're going into an interview and they'll ask you stuff, if you had to know what kind of a system you're going to use to organize all your stuff, you're going to make a pretty competent impression on them.
Can it
And
also be useful for study coordinators or research site owners?
Study coordinators partially. A chunk of it, yeah. I don't want to lie, maybe 30%. If some study coordinators are interested, they can absolutely reach out to me. I have several sections basically of the training, so I'm
Okay.
absolutely clear on what is for CRAs only and what is general stuff, and I'll be happy to break out that and
Mm-hmm.
that form of coaching. And I have been when I'm at sites as a monitor, and I have study coordinators that are kind of struggling. They're new to the job. I'll show them several functionalities, and maybe just to give you like a flavor
Ah, so
of
you're one of those monitors. There's three types of monitors. Most
yeah.
fall into one of these three groups. Me and my colleague discuss this all the time. 20, I don't know the percentage. I think 20% are super nice. They're like very friendly. They go out of their way to help the site. Like, they take it upon themselves. Like, I think you're in this group. They
Mm-hmm.
take it upon themselves to be proactive with the site and actually train them and help them and be on their side. Then there's like I think 60% that are neutral. Like they just go in. I think I fall into this group. I just go in there, do what I need to do. I'll be nice with them. I'm not gonna be mean. But I get my stuff done and then I leave. And then there's 20% that are just like the devil. Okay, I mean, these
Okay.
people are coming to the site looking for a confrontation. It happens 20% of the time. Usually we can resolve it in house, but sometimes we got to go up to the PM and say, "Hey, why did you send like the Antichrist here?" We,
Yeah.
I mean, so it seems like you fall into the first 20%, and I don't know if those percentages are exactly
I'd fall somewhere
precise.
in between those two groups because, yeah, I like to consider myself as a nice, helpful guy. But it's also in my own interest because if I know that there's a study coordinator who's just new to the job and there's certain things technically she doesn't know maybe because they don't teach them, then if I help her be more productive, um, first of all, the quality at the site's going to be better of their work. She's going to have more time free. She's not going to forget so much stuff. She's going to follow up on hopefully everything, and that makes my monitoring experience more pleasant at the site when I show up there, and I know there's not going to be 35 follow up items that I have to write. Maybe there's just going to be 10 or 5.
Hmm.
So it's also to my benefit, but yeah, but obviously, yeah. And to be honest, also over the last few years, I've been trying to just improve my system that I teach in the coaching.
Sure,
So I'm
sure.
happy for any input that I get, and usually when you talk about those kind of things, other people will also tell you about what kind of tricks they know,
Okay.
and then you can add that to your stuff.
Hmm.
So
So
yeah.
okay, for the CRAs out there watching, and like you heard Daniel say, some of it applies to coordinators too. So his email will be under the video. But for the CRAs watching, we have a good enough of number of CRAs watching also. And
Hmm.
Daniel, we haven't even talked about this, but so many CRAs want to open up their own sites. Uh, there's something there, but that's another video, all right? The
Hmm.
We're helping a lot through my consulting company. So the CRA is watching. Okay,
Yep.
give them what are the three most important things they can do today to make them more productive.
Um, it would be hard for me to say like three things, but what I would like to do, and that's a fairly big part of the coaching, but I'll be happy to share it here with your audience. But it touches on several things, and then in the end, I hope after 5 minutes, it all ties into one thing that then shows you, okay, yeah, that would, and a lot of it is just common sense mixed in with a few things that people might not know. So the first one of the things, for example, is keep your subject lines in a structure: protocol slash site slash patient slash topic. Now, I know nobody hardly ever does it, yeah, but double click your email and and just when you received an email from a site, and I love subject lines like help. Yeah. Like I'm never going to find that email again when I need it because a sponsor is asking about it 2 years later. Um, But you can, in Outlook, you can double click an email, go into the subject line and just retype it and close it and ask you if you want to save the changes, and then you've updated the subject line to something that you're going to find again. And that literally takes you less than 10 seconds to do for an email.
So
Do
what?
that.
So what? How do they categorize it again? You said patient, study. What was it?
I put protocol first, and then site, PI name or site number, and then maybe patient ID if you have one, if it's a topic related to a patient. And then the last thing is like the topic, whatever it is, travel reimbursement or what have you.
Okay.
But just make sure that your subject lines are structured in a way that you're going to easily find them, and that's going to become important in other steps. But you can actually change the subject line of an email you've received and then reply to it or mail it on to somebody else for clarification. The other thing is, and that's also pretty much basic, is have a folder structure for everything, like a folder for each protocol, obviously. Under there, a folder where you have the IBs, all the sites, and like a site folder, and then every site in there. I don't have subfolders within sites because the search functionality is good enough once you know that everything for your site is in there. For team meeting minutes, literally, really for everything, a clinical management plan. So you have all the current versions when your clinical team manager sends around the new update or what have you, project management. And I will have easily 50 plus subfolders for one protocol, plus all my corporate level folders, like my functional manager communication, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I like looking at it as if you had a warehouse and you could throw any piece of communication, just throw it in there, and all you had to do is whistle for it to come back. That's what your folder structure should look like, is really have a folder for everything and drop your stuff over there. Now back to your inbox. The emails that come into your inbox, and being a CRA, in reality, a lot of it is a communication game. There's a bunch of emails coming in and going out, and you got to stay on top of all of your communication because you don't want to forget something. You don't want to forget to have followed up on something. So any email that you have in your inbox in Outlook, and most companies will work with Outlook, there's an option to give it a color. There's one column where you can give them a color and kind of like tag them. And I'll have 3 different colors that I work with. One color, and everybody can pick their own color. Well, pink, yellow, green, whatever suits your needs. One color is for emails that I'll read through. It's like a corporate communication or a study communication that I don't have to do anything with. It's just FYI. Read it when you have time. Maybe there's an update to a system you want to look into. Here's the steps, how to, stuff like that. Just general stuff. Or also on your trial that you just want to make sure that you're going to reread again. It's just some kind of an update in general, but it has nothing to do with a patient or your site specifically. So those will have one color. I'll have another color for emails that I need to follow up on. So it's like, all CRAs, don't forget that on Friday you have to have updated XYZ. And I'll give those a separate color. And then I'll have a third category. Those are emails that I've sent out to somebody, be it the internal team, be it a site, and those will have the third color. So then when you can filter for those colors. So with one click, I can see, okay, these are all the emails that I have to follow up on myself. And that helps you prioritize which ones you really have to do now, or which ones you just feel like, because you have like 10 to pick from, you have 3 days to do it. Another thing in Outlook is setting reminders. You just right-click the email and set a reminder for whenever. And except for those, I'm going to read them at some point in time. It's just FYI emails. The others that I've sent out to sites where I'm waiting for replies, or sent out to the team and I'm waiting for a reply, they will get a reminder that I will set to myself, because I want to hear back from my internal team like within 2 days about a certain topic, or whatever is a time frame that makes sense. It's urgent. I want to hear back tomorrow morning at 9. I want this to pop up, and just to remind me to make sure that I got a response yesterday evening. If not, I'm going to send out a reminder right in the morning. Or the example of the screening next week. And the other reminders that I'll set is basically tasks that I have to complete. which had these third color. And that's just a reminder that I'll set in there where to a time point where I have enough time to still complete it. So if it's like by next Friday, don't forget, I'll set the reminder for Wednesday afternoon. And do that. So once I've sent out a communication, I'll grab the last email in that communication chain and toss it over into one of those subfolders. And that makes sure that you have your inbox clean, because I know from experience when I started at the CRO what it feels like when you have like 700 emails in your inbox. I mean, that makes you want to go down in the basement and shoot yourself.
Yep.
So by having your subjects lines all cleared out and your color coding, and every email that you send out, basically just go into the search function and look up for something that's in your subject line or a unique word in the email text. So you'll catch all your emails in your inbox, move them over into that subfolder, and keep that clean. That may sound like it's more work and it takes more time, but honestly, that's BS. It's just the lazy mind telling you, I don't want to do that, and so forth. And you are so much, your head is so much freer and clearer and more focused. And that also basically ties into something that now that you've updated your subject lines every time, you've moved every last email, like your site asks about reimbursement for travel costs. Okay, so you send that on to the team lead. Can you get confirmation from the sponsor that they will cover this travel cost for a potential patient? I'll grab the email from the site and I'll move it over into the folder. Now I only have the most current email up there. Thing is, if it's something that's going on with the site and I have a monitoring visit tomorrow and I'm preparing for it, I go into my inbox and in the search function, I'll just filter for that site name and tell it to filter only the inbox, and I'll automatically have all of the issues that are still open and going on. Even if it was something like 3 weeks ago where I set a reminder for we have a month's time, it's absolutely not urgent at all. When I prepare for my monitoring visit, that's going to catch all those emails. And another nice thing is, so that's how it basically all ties in for me. So I have my color coding where I can see these are my to-do things. I have reminders automatically triggering if I haven't heard back from the site or from my CPM. They're all just humans. It's only me who's trying to be better and not forget anything ever. And the other thing is emails that there's technically nothing to do right now, but you do want to make sure that you don't forget that. Like a mail from the team management, like, next visit to your site, such and such, don't forget to talk about this or to follow up about this. And what you can do is you will have a calendar entry for that next monitoring visit. You can right-click your email and go copy, go over to your calendar, open it up, and with Control-V or Command-V, no, Control-V, it'll copy the entire email in there. So when you're then preparing for that visit the day before the visit, you open your calendar entry and open up all those emails that you dropped in there.
Wow, okay.
And you're never, ever going to forget about any requirement or request for you to follow up on something on site when you're there next time. Even if you got that email 2 months ago and it was never a topic again, it's in there. You're going to have a brief look at it when you prep for your monitoring visit, and you're never going to forget about anything. So this basically, in a nutshell, is how you're never going to forget to follow up on something on site that was communicated to you to follow up in an email. Mm-hmm. You're never going to forget to follow up on communication where you're waiting for other people to get back to you.
Yes.
And send them a friendly reminder. And you're never going to forget to at least get started on something that needs to be done like 2 days, completed 2 days from now. And one thing that and also you're going to find all your communication, because if you cleaned up your subject lines, you can at least narrow it down to the PI and the site. And it's either going to should be in the site folder by then or in your main inbox. But if you just do a general search for the PI, and just look for the rough time frame where it is, and then you're going to see it in the subject line which email that was, because your worst nightmare is like a year and a half later, there's an audit at that site.
Yep.
And how did you follow up on this topic? And those are things that you learn. You can learn the painful way, if you wish.
Yep.
Um,
Absolutely.
and that's why it makes so much sense to take those. And it's literally actually just 5 seconds to update a subject line, even if a site sent you one of those help subject lines. Update it, make it clear, and then email on from there and move it into your folder. And you're going to have all your stuff in your folders and be able to find everything when on that day that you hope never comes, but you have to find that communication again. And I've had that kind of stuff, and I have it frequently where it's basically what does the follow up look like about this topic and that topic, and then you can copy paste all those emails together, and here you go, and that was communicated here and then, and so forth and so on. And yeah, and that you can imagine is just one part basically. And I go into all the details of how to do it exactly and a few more things in the coaching program
Yeah.
that you can I hopefully get a flavor of now, that just this part of following up on your communication can be like it could be a nightmare with 700 emails in your inbox or 600 or more, and you
Oh
just
yeah.
hope that with your scribbled to-do list and your notes that you don't forget everything or anything, to switching to a program to just a way of doing your work and managing your work where at the end of the day, if a reminder didn't pop up, there's nothing more I need to follow up on today. Everything else has been sent out. I've tagged that with reminders, so I'm not going to forget to follow up on that if I don't hear back. Um, and I know that any request that ever came in to follow up at the next monitoring visit is in my calendar entry, and I'm going to be looking at that before I go out to the site.
Yeah.
So that was just like a little part of that coaching program.
A
There's complete.
little actionable thing anyone can go implement right now with Outlook. I use Apple Mail, but they have the
Mhm.
same features. I mean, you can set
Oh,
reminders, so
oh,
whatever
yeah,
you use, right? But Outlook is
absolutely.
probably industry standard. I'm not
Yeah,
that familiar with Outlook. I don't use it. I actually have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 different email addresses right now in my Apple box. So for me, those are like folders because I know each one's
yeah,
for a particular different activity. So
yeah.
that those are like my folders, but I could incorporate the reminders. My reminder is the reminder feature on the phone or the
Hmm.
calendar or both if it's very important. I'll just have it like redundancy for me is important. But I still forget. I still things fall through the crack. I also write things down on a to-do list. Speaking of which, I use kind of all three. Email, I
Hmm.
use Evernote a lot. So for
Hmm.
those that don't use Evernote, you can basically it's like a USB file like in the cloud, and you just put whatever you want in there, and you can search by words or by even images on a card. So I'll use it to scan business cards. That's actually one application I've used at site visits. PI coordinator give me their cards. I don't really want to take them anywhere, so I scan them and then I'll just toss them later. But they're in
Hmm.
Evernote, and if I ever want to look up, and I don't remember that coordinator's name, but I know what site or what city they're in, I just
Hmm.
search for that and boom, that card pops up. Now I know whose it is. So, and then I use this to write things down, like my to do list. So for me, it's like redundancy. Like I want a reminder on my phone, on my email, on the book, and then sometimes even with all that, I still miss things, right? Like things still fall through the cracks, but you try to stay on top of it as best you can. But these are good actionable items. We're definitely going to do like a part 2 and a part 3 and a part however many you want, Daniel. But I
Hmm.
wanted to talk a little bit about monitoring reports, those dreaded
Hmm.
monitoring reports, right?
Hmm.
To me, the site visits are so much more enjoyable than the monitoring reports.
Okay.
Like, especially site selection visits. I mean, to do a site selection visit, piece of cake, right? To write
Hmm.
the report about the site selection visit, pain
Hmm.
in the ass. And I know
Hmm.
some people are a complete opposite. That's just the way I'm wired. But any tips for monitors on how to more efficiently write their reports? I know we're all given templates, but I mean, is there anything else we could be doing, or they could be doing, I should say?
That would actually be another section of my coaching program that I have about different visit types. I mean, I have I have it part of the coaching program for the main ones, which I consider is the SIV and the interim monitoring visits. I'll also be setting one up for closeout visits, but right now those are the two that I've nailed down into the coaching program that I walk people through. Yeah, so that alone is like 2 to 3 hours what I walk people through and how I do it. In a nutshell, just to give you the gist of it,
Yes, just a
is,
nutshell.
really that I have a workbook that I'll take with me that I will have created for each visit, and I'll be happy basically to show how that then works. It's a pain to set up because at the beginning of the trial you have to set it up once, and that may take you an entire workday to get it set up. But updating it for every following visit is usually in the ballpark of 45 minutes. So your entire prep for an IMV or an SIV is down to, well, an SIV is actually down to 10 minutes. That has to do with how that workbook is set up. For interim monitoring visits, it's more in the neighborhood of 45 minutes because you have to look at more information and update it. And then when you go to the site, I'll have the workbook with me. And maybe let me just jot down something here on a post-it. So
Yeah.
if I'll have like workbook with all the different points to do, there's nothing on there, just scribbling. And I've checked off tasks number 1. I'll mark it kind of like this. And then if I checked off number 2, I couldn't do yet. Number 3 and 4, I've taken care of. It's starting to look like this.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Now I could do the last thing on that page. Now it starts to look like this. Since there's nothing at the top, I'm just going to extend that line up here. And since this workbook has like up to 20 pages, when I'm flipping through my pages now, I'm going to see immediately this is the only thing I need to take care of on that page. That's
So
still
you
left.
you developed a workbook for each
Yeah.
visit, for each monitoring visit, SSV, SIV, IMV, closeout visit, pre-audit visit, booster visit, whatever visit you're doing, you have a workbook for that or like some kind of system for it?
Yeah, for PSSVs, SIVs, and regular IMVs, and the same thing then for closeout visits. And the thing is, for like SIV, for example, it's going to be the same things you're doing at every site. So you don't really have to update your workbook. That's where this comes back, that it's really the pain of doing this in-depth setup that I teach
Hmm.
in teaching. Same as like what I was communicating about the emails.
So the workbook is something you Daniel created and you give to
Yeah.
the your students.
Yes.
And no matter what CRO you work for, this is the what you follow to go through the your particular monitoring visit, right?
You're still going to obviously have to update it because every protocol is different, every trial is different. But
Okay. But you update
but
it
there,
once per study, right?
yeah, exactly. There's the
I
place for
gotcha.
everything. One example being the equipment that you need to check. Is the calibration in place?
This is
Well,
smart. I can't believe no one else was doing this. Like, this is
I
like
get
such a
that
good
a lot,
idea.
and I get that a lot. Yeah.
This is a good idea. Now critique my monitor, and I don't care if you like kill me. All right, I'm not a CRA. I just
Yeah.
kind of like dabble.
Hmm.
Um, but critique my strategy. So here's what I do when I go to a visit. Okay, whatever visit that is, I print out the template, for the report, and then
Okay.
I just handwrite on it like
Okay.
everything I need,
Yeah.
and then I leave. Right, and then I'll go home and type it up. And is that
Okay.
like is that a good strategy? Bad?
Okay. What I would do differently and do differently and teach differently is also grab the protocol. There will be a clinical management plan or something like that, a site management plan for the CRAs, and your trip report with the annotations, maybe what you are required to comment on in depth, stuff like that, like list the amount of IP bottles that they have at site or something like that, and expiration dates, or really the details should be in the annotations of your trip report, or at least the questions, depending really on what kind of a company you work for. I've seen like the most rudimentary basic questions down to the most 100 sub questions trip report requirements. So whatever the company you're working for requires to have in the trip report, you have your protocol management plan for sites and the annotated trip report. And so I would not just print out the trip report, but also make sure that I have everything from the management plan also in there, because there might be things in a clinical management plan required to be done at an SIV
Is
or
that
done
that's the monitoring plan for the site?
monitoring plan, yeah, or site management plan or clinical management plan. Basically, the document that outlines the CRA responsibilities. What do you need to do when it comes
Okay.
to site visits? So
Okay.
just make sure that you also look through that, through the entire document once, and then, of course, with focus afterwards, because something may be hidden somewhere else, and then with focus on the visit type, which will be outlined in that plan. And make sure that you have that also, and that's why I call it a workbook, because it's more than just the trip report printed out with the questions. And and really fine tune it, and that's what I've done with the workbook, to something that really has its separate sections. What are the things that I need to go over with the PI in his 2.5 minutes that he's going to have time, or ten
Yeah,
minutes?
right. Yeah, 2.5 is average.
Yeah, kind of. What is the stuff that I just have to look at equipment wise at the site? All those things have them in there basically. And and I'd have more. Usually, companies will have a database. The CRO will have a database of the site team members at each site, and their
Okay.
contact details. Have that with you. Let the study coordinator confirm. Do we have everybody on that list? Also, you yourself cross check against the delegation log. Do we have everybody in the databases on the delegation log? Um, yeah. So, and that's why, again, that's a really big part of the coaching, is exactly this kind of workbook that will have you covered for all of that stuff. And once you have it, just to skip to the beautiful end part of it, now you're marching out to the site with your workbook with you. Since the way that it is set up is in such a way that all you're doing is like entering a date, just circling yes or circling no. So at site, you are really efficient. You're not
Wow.
taking time forever to write down stuff.
Yeah, that would have been so helpful for me as for my site selection visit
Yeah.
because like I was printing out the report and then the boxes are like this small and I have to describe like pages of it and I'm just like scribbling it as the site tour is going on and then they're busy so they go do something else and I gotta like keep up and like I kept a lot of it honestly in my head. Luckily, I was
Yeah.
able to like remember.
Worst place to keep it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my head's the worst place, man. So,
Absolutely.
let's we're going to do more, Daniel. We're going to have you on. But
Yep.
before we go, I'm going to play a word association game with you. I'm putting you on the spot, but it'll be fun, okay? But where do people I'm going to have the links. Where do people reach out if they want productivity coaching from you?
With my at my email address, I put my main focus on, and the email address is the CRA coach at gmail.com. So the CRA coach at gmail.com.
The CRA coach at gmail.com. Okay.
Yeah. And I haven't put any work into like a website and so forth and so on yet. The thing is, I really focused on putting this program together and teaching it to the first few students and getting their feedback and refining it. Too, putting up a fancy website, getting yourself a logo done for $50 is like the least important step in something like this. I really want my product
Hey,
being
logo, $5, man.
$5. Now I want a
5 bucks.
fancy one. I want a fancy
Fancy.
one.
It's
Well,
fancy.
yeah,
Pay me 50, I'll get you a logo.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, but that will be forthcoming soon, to have like a website and so forth and so on. But right now, just shoot me an email, and I'll be happy
The
to run
CRA
any.
coach at gmail.com. We'll do like a series on this because I think this is something I'm not qualified to talk about. Productivity for CRAs. I mean, I would never attempt to talk about that.
Mhm.
I'll dabble. I could give tips, but I'm not. I'm no CRA productivity coach. I'm like the opposite of that. I'm a ADHD, like just entrepreneur doing a million things at once. But I want you on because I need other experts on, like you know, people like
Mhm.
yourself and like other people who do other things like medical monitors come on, and we can do different series on this. So this is just one of many from the CRA coach Daniel Regit. Regit, right?
Regit, but nobody knows
Regit.
how to pronounce it. Don't worry.
Regit. Yeah, I get it messed up. Okay, word association. I'm gonna say a word,
Okay.
or I'm gonna say like something about research, and then you tell me the first word that pops up. All right.
Okay.
Site selection visit.
Um, challenging.
SIV.
Easy.
Wow. Okay. Audit.
Learning experience.
Okay. Study coordinator.
Teammate.
And then my favorite, the PI.
Chase.
Okay. And then research clinic. One more. Research clinic.
Lunch.
Ah, good, good. Perfect way to end that interview. Thank you, Daniel. Anyone who's interested in productivity coaching, go to thecracoach@gmail.com. Send him an email, and we'll have you on again. This is really good. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was a real pleasure, and I really look forward to our next get together here.
Thank you, and everyone else, thank you for watching, listening, and we'll catch you later. Bye bye.